Hello. I'm not sure how to begin this, but I feel compelled to speak. Yesterday, Charlie Kirk was assassinated at Utah Valley University, shot in the neck while simply engaging in the kind of political debate that this country was built on. And I'm sitting here, 76 years old, having witnessed more political violence in my lifetime than any generation should have to endure. And I'm afraid. Not just sad, afraid, because I've seen this before. I've lived through this before, and I know where it leads. I was in the ninth grade when President Kennedy was killed in Dallas. I was just a kid, but I remember the way the world stopped, the way adults looked lost, confused, like the ground had shifted beneath their feet. I was 16 when the Watts erupted in flames. 19 when Martin Luther King was gunned down on the balcony in Memphis, and then just 2 months later, Bobby Kennedy bleeding out on that hotel kitchen floor in Los Angeles. By the time I was 21, I watched the news footage of National Guardsmen firing on college students at Kent State. 4 dead, 9 wounded, for protesting a war. I lived through Vietnam, a war that tore America apart. Brother against brother, family split down the middle. I've lived through the Gulf War, through the horror of 9/11, when we watched our fellow Americans jump from burning towers. And now we're watching Israel and Hamas, Russia and Ukraine, while our own Congress erupts in shouting matches when asked to simply offer a prayer for Charlie Kirk's family. Do you see the pattern? Do you see where we're heading? My mother, God rest her soul, used to tell me something that seemed quaint at the time. She'd say, "Don't talk about politics or religion at the dinner table. It could lead to war." I used to think that was an old-fashioned thinking. Small town wisdom that simply didn't apply to our sophisticated modern world. But she had lived through the Depression, through World War II. She understood something that my generation forgot, that when we stop seeing each other as human beings first, when we make politics and ideology more important than basic decency, violence is never far behind. She was right. It always starts with words. It starts with calling your opponent evil instead of wrong. It starts when we stop listening and start looking for reasons to hate. What I'm witnessing now terrifies me because I recognize the pattern. It's not just the violence, though God knows there's been enough of that. It's the way we talk about each other, the way we've abandoned even the pretense of civility. Charlie Kirk went to that campus to do something fundamental to democracy, to engage in debate, to sit at his table and say, "Prove me wrong." Whether you agreed with him or not, he was willing to listen, to engage, to have his ideas challenged. That's what universities are supposed to be for. That's what America is supposed to be for. But instead of debate, we got a bullet. Instead of discourse, we got assassination. And the response? Even in death, people can't stop being partisan. I've seen the social media posts. I've heard the immediate attempts to justify it, to blame the victim, to score political points over a man, and he's not even in his grave. Have we lost our souls entirely? This isn't about left or right anymore. This is about right and wrong. This is about whether we're going to choose to be a civilization or whether we're going to tear each other apart. I feel like we're standing at the edge of something dark, something I never thought I'd see in America. When political disagreement becomes grounds for murder, when we celebrate the deaths of those we disagree with, when we can't even agree to pray for murdered men's children, we've crossed a line. The center is not holding. The basic agreements that allow a society to function, that we solve our differences with words, not weapons, that we respect the humanity of those we disagree with, that some things are more important than being right. These are disappearing. And once they're gone, once that social contract breaks down completely, history shows us what comes next, and it's not pretty. In Greek mythology, there were the Fates, three sisters who spun the thread of human destiny, and there were the Furies, the avenging goddesses who pursued those who committed unforgivable crimes, particularly crimes against family and the natural order. Our ancestors understood something we've forgotten, that there are consequences to our choices, that when we abandon the bonds that hold society together, when we treat our fellow citizens as enemies to be destroyed rather than neighbors to be reasoned with, we invite terrible retribution. The Furies are already among us. We can see them in the rage, in the hatred, in the violence that seems to be escalating every day. The question is, are we going to feed them, or are we going to turn back before it's too late? I'm not naive. I know there are real disagreements in America, important ones, issues that matter deeply to all of us. But I also know that no political position, no ideology, no cause is worth the soul of a nation. We have to choose right now, each of us. Are we going to be the generation that chooses violence over dialogue, hatred over humanity, revenge over reconciliation? Or are we going to remember who we're supposed to be? Charlie Kirk was 31 years old. He had a wife. He had children. Whatever you thought of his politics, he was someone's son, someone's husband, someone's father. And he died for the crime of having public opinions and being willing to defend them in public. If we can't agree that this is wrong, not politically wrong, but morally wrong, then we've already lost everything that matters. I've lived through too much history. I've seen too much violence. I've watched too many bright lights get snuffed out by hatred and madness. Please, please don't let America go down this path. Don't let your children inherit a country where political differences are settled with bullets. Don't let the Furies have their way. We can still choose differently. We can still choose to be better, but we have to choose now before it's too late. The threads of our democracy is in the hands of the fates, but we still have a say in how this story ends. Choose wisely. Our children are watching. History is watching. And Charlie Kirk's children are growing up in the world we're creating right now.